What's up, everybody? This is A7X Fan Ben, and welcome to another fleet making video. In this one, we're going to try to use Grim the Savage, the Frozen North version, to steal enemy treasures from a home island as fast as possible and at a moment's notice. So it's called the Grim Express, and it's a fleet idea I had a while back, and I've been excited to try it out. So we're going to kind of build it in PSM list here and check it out. So it uses one of my favorite ships, Cassandra, that you may have seen in other videos, and this is one of the best ships for Grim the Savage because she can accommodate the cost of both him and the crew needed to use his abilities aboard, such as Anna Maria or Rise of the Fiend's Crimson Angel. In this case, it doesn't really matter which one of those you use. They both have the free ride ability, which I think is what Sylvaxry called it, and so basically allows you to have crew of any nationality use their abilities on the ship. And it's a really good point cost because 11 point cap also allows us to add helmsman. So the first two are 9 plus 2 is 11. So for only 22 points, we have our treasure stealer moving 3S, SSS, and it has 3 cargo spaces open for hoarding gold, or not for hoarding, home island hoarding. So Grim the Savage takes as much treasure as she can carry. So the only crew in the game with that ability. There are a few ships with it, but those ships do not have 6 cargo. So even after the crew are added, we have 3 open for treasure, which is really nice because you are paying a premium for Grim. So I like having at least 3 spaces open for that ability, because if you use regular home island rating, it's like 3 points a lot of times, approximately, and you can only take 1. So if we're going to pay a premium, we want to be able to take as many as possible, preferably more than 2, just kind of the way I like to do it with my preferences. So we're going to make him an express choice here by adding Calypso. So we're going to do the cheapest Calypso build we can, which is Rover with Jonah. So this is how the pirates are overpowered and extremely cheap. So we're going to put Calypso on a 2-point ship because Jonah allows us to exceed the point cap of the ship. It does not exceed the build total. All the crew, of course, still count against the build total, but it does allow us to add Calypso, who is going to generate whirlpools 50% of the time. So L away from this ship and then 1 L away from a wild island. So the nice thing about L away from a wild island is that's going to approximately be L away from an opponent's home island, hopefully. So we're going to have islands that are probably going to be 3L apart in order to facilitate home island rating. So we're basically going to kind of use that L away from wild island from Calypso to place it as close to an enemy home island as possible. And then that's going to act as a portal to steal treasure as fast as possible. And one of the things that you kind of need, or really want at least with this, is to be able to get 2 actions in 1 turn for Cassandra, because she's going to go through a whirlpool and then she's going to want to steal on the other side of it. You want it to be a surprise raid. So, and either way, she's probably going to take fire at the opponent's home island or on her way back to your home island. So we really need to expedite how fast this happens. So therefore, we're going to add our typical Patagonia cheese setup with Robinson. We are going to add Bratley as well, because why not? He gives us our +5, which will help us add an auxiliary support ship on the back end as well. And of course, Micron for the essential action sacrifice ability. So Patagonia will basically be giving her actions mostly to Cassandra, maybe to a different ship at some point as well. But this is a gimmick fleet. It's not really meant to be competitive, but I think it would do best as a support part of a bigger fleet, like maybe a 100-point game, and then you have this like as an option, like where like maybe you have a 10 master or something to like attract attention, but then you also have like this like home island hoarding double action Cassandra coming through a whirlpool when your opponent least expects it. So but of course, by putting this fleet out there, it's going to be more obvious of a combo. That's all right. So right now I have the last ship as another typical one, Banshee's Cry with Explorer and Oarsman. So this is kind of like an exploratory backup ship. So since the purpose of the Cassandra is to steal gold, we might not have a reliable source of treasure because your opponent might not unload gold at their home island. They might just warp the gold back out with forts, or they might see Grim coming from a mile away because he's, you know, probably the most popular Viking named crew to use, and or because they might spy him with Lucky the Parrot or something like that. But speaking of which, that would be a good crew to use in this fleet. But we're gonna have some UTs to help us find the treasures in the game. So I wrote Bradley brings in Banshee's Cry plus crew. Yep, so those are the +5 selections, basically. So I'm gonna put that down here. And then, yeah, if events are not banned for the game, you could, instead of bringing in the Explorer and Oarsman on Banshee's Cry, you could bring in Hidden Cove instead. But I would actually probably stick with the crew. Because if you bring in Hidden Cove, you don't have any ships with Explorer, so it's harder to use Hidden Cove effectively on the first turn. And this fleet doesn't really need Hidden Cove. It's not really trying to get a first turn jump. It's more, Cassandra's kind of lying back and wait. Actually, you kind of want to wait until your opponent has like 3 coins on their home island, and then you'll raid them. You don't want to wait too long, because usually the first haul or 2 of coins your opponent brings home will be the best values they'll get all game, because they'll probably load the best coins first. So you kind of want to raid them when they have like 2 to 4 treasures, maybe, because those are probably going to be the best. If you wait until they have like 6 or 7, I mean, you risk losing if they get 16 first if you're using the more than half endgame, like default endgame rule, or endgame trigger, I should say. But you also risk diversifying the treasure too much and getting like lower values. So if they bring home 6, and you might end up like the worst 3, you might end up with like 3 1s or something. But if you raid them when they initially start bringing treasure home, that'd be better. So it is a pretty fragile fleet. There's no gunship. There's no real combat capability for the most part. Cassandra has some durability, but against an opponent's wrath at their home island being hoarded, she might not survive long. So, but that's part of why we've got this whole setup. So she'll probably go through a whirlpool, raid on the same turn, and then ideally next round she'll use her first action to go back through that same whirlpool, and then Rover is supposed to basically just stay at the home island. So the entry whirlpool might be right next to your home island, or right next to Rover, so then you could come back through that same one and then use that 4th action between those 2 rounds to dock home the treasure. So it really should only take 2 rounds to pull off a hoard from surprise raid to actually dumping the gold at your own home island. So, and then let's see what else we got. So yeah, I'll add the forts. Islands, I said as far apart as possible. Okay. So I think I said that because I think I put that in the notes because there's no combat capability. So the farther apart islands are, the longer it takes an enemy to reach you. Oh, and the other reason is because with Calypso, island distances matter less when you're using her, especially for exploring, because if you can put the whirlpool L away from Wild Island, as long as your ship has at least L speed, you'll come out with the stern touching the whirlpool and then the bow pointed at the island you want to dock at, and then you can just use a move action. Sometimes when you're using Calypso, you don't even need helmsman because you're so close to the island when you're popping out. But the problem is, if you're L away from a wild island and the islands are a really far distance apart, even with Cassandra's hull length, which is a little less than S, I think, I don't think she's not going to be able to dock in an enemy home island that's far away from everything else in one action. So I think I'm going to keep the islands closer. It is riskier from a combat perspective, but it should make the home island hoarding go more successfully. So you do want to keep Cassandra out of danger early in the game. So it's entirely possible that Cassandra won't get an action on the first turn or 2. She might just go into a fog bank or stay at the home island and just sit. The other option is to use her to explore, but we'll get to that soon based on the UTs, which I think I'm also going to change. But so I put terrain as fog, which makes sense because this fleet is not intending to get into combat. If anything, you're just going to take this, steal the treasure and hide if you need to. You might duck into a fog bank on the way home. So yeah, so now we're going to add some forts just to have them available. So Dead Man's Point, Devil's Maw, and we do have an English ship, so we're able to add Ramsgate and Brompton, Fort Brompton as well. So we're going to add those 4, partly just as a reminder to have them on hand if you play this fleet. So very unlikely you'd build all 4 of them, even in a multiplayer game with a lot of islands. So let's see here. So for the UTs, this was from a while ago, so I might change this. Yeah, I had marks in that as shipping charts to find treasures. I might keep those and then add a couple different ones. And then these, okay, so those other 3 are basically to protect the Cassandra. So homemade flag reduces cannon range just S. Neptune's figurehead is like a super eternal type thing. Manawa no Kohatu, yeah, I'm not going to do those exact ones. I might do a couple of these, but not all of them. So basically, we want knowledge. So we want to know what the opponent is loading and what they're unloading at home. So in a 2-player game, the default rules have you flip treasure face up when you dock, but a lot of times I don't use that, and I think a lot of people probably don't use that rule, and you also don't use that in a multiplayer game with 3 or more players. So I'm going to actually, I'm still going to include all these like spying UTs and whatnot. So Maps of Alexandria and Pirate Globe will really expedite finding out like who to raid and how early to raid them for their treasure on their home island. So turn all treasure on all wild islands face up for the remainder of the game. So the odds are decent that one of these 2 will be found within the first couple rounds, or maybe first 3 rounds, and that'll help you know. Ideally, one of them would get flipped before your opponent starts loading treasure, because once they start loading onto their ships, it'll be face down. And then depending on if you're using a house rule or if it's a multiplayer game, you might not be able to see what it is once they've already unloaded it at their home island. So, and then shipping charts will help with that a little bit. And then the Cassandra's ability is also perfect for Grim the Savage, because it allows you to look at a face down cargo on any ship. So that'll help you see a face down coin or crew, but probably coin, and try to see if they've got some good treasures coming home, like good values, like 5+. So I think I'm also going to include the wipe UTs just to make the fleet a little bit more competitive. So I'm talking about the ones that knock out negatives, or well, they knock out all face up unique treasures from the game. So this will help against if you find natives on the same idols like Karmic Idol. So, and it's also designed to help the Cassandra be able to explore at some point in the game. So now we've got our knowledge UTs that'll help us find what coins we like. And you could do Marksman's Map, allows you to look at a face down treasure on an island per turn. Maybe that's a better one because Cassandra already has the spying ability. So no, I think I'll keep it with shipping charts, probably because you really want to know what the opponent's bringing home. So you might find shipping charts, and then if nobody finds the globe or the maps, then it'll be more useful to see what's on an opponent's ship than on an island that you might not even want to go to. So anyway, but I'll put a note about these UTs in the description just to include it. All right, so UTs plus 3 5s. The last 3, like the treasure worth value, the 3 you'll have to include to be worth 15 total is debatable. You could do whatever you want with that, 663 or 771, 654. I don't really know what would be best, but I'll just do 3 5s as a default for now. So that's pretty much it, I think. So we've got our forts, we've got our home island hoarder. It's going to be trying to do a surprise raid. It is kind of a funky fleet where you might be holding back because between the face down Viking crew and Calypso's reveal, it might become pretty obvious what you're doing to your opponent. Ideally, you might keep Calypso face down and not reveal her on the first round or two, and only reveal her once you're ready to home island raid. The risk there is that you don't get the roll, because she only succeeds half the time. You need a 4 through 6, and there's no reroll on the ship to help her out. So you might want to just start rolling for her early, because it would really suck for the opportune moment to come along where you can raid, and then Calypso can't generate whirlpools when you need her. So you might want to just start pumping them out ASAP. And then once you get one of them near an opponent's home island, I guess you could theoretically unload her to not have to keep creating more that you don't really want. Because every time you create one, if Rover stays docked at your home island, which is likely, your home island is going to be very accessible to your opponent as well, which could be bad, because they might bring in like a big gunship and come in and like board Patagonia to kill Bradley or Micron or capture the Rover or something. So anyway, so it's not supposed to be competitive or anything, but it's kind of a fun gimmick fleet. I'm trying to see how far I can take the Grim the Savage concept in a standard game, so a 40-point game. So I think it might be, I don't know if it's going to be more competitive than my Guide Grim to the Goodies fleet that has the Morocco in it, but I think it might be a little bit better, especially because you get the double action, including Micron and Calypso. That should really help Cassandra be able to be more effective at her job. So, and then we still have Banshee's Cry to run treasure traditionally as well. So yeah, those UTs that wipe out the negatives, those are partly there to clear islands for Cassandra, because it's entirely possible that your opponent won't be exploring much, or they might not be bringing good coins home, things like that. So the Karmic Idol and Piratic Codex, they might help you. Those and the Revealer UTs, those 4 just in general, those bottom 4, they might really help Cassandra know which islands are safe, because you don't want to explore blind with her and then get hit with the plague and then your whole strategy's done. So that's partly Banshee's Cry, her role as well, is to like go to an island and explore it before Cassandra does, which should work pretty well because she's got the Explorer crew and Cassandra doesn't, so she'd probably explore sooner, even though she's a tiny bit slower than Cassandra's triple S speed. I think it's, yeah, to that point, I think it's pretty likely Banshee's Cry will get the first double action via Micron of the game in your fleet, because she could move 4L basically and then get to an island and explore it. There's no real harm in doing that. She might get hit with a negative ET, but better than Cassandra getting the negative ET. So and then that'll hopefully open up an island for Cassandra to go to if she's running treasure conventionally while waiting for the enemy home island to fill up with some treasure. So overall, not super competitive, more of a Grim the Savage gimmick fleet, but just trying to push this concept to a limit in a 40-point game. So feel free to comment, like, subscribe, and check out the affiliate links in the description if you want to support the channel and my site, Pirates with Ben. Beyond that, thanks for watching. I'll be back soon with more videos.